What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of our My Team Career Mode, episode 4 for the fourth race of the season in Imola, the first sprint race of the season as well. So it'll be exciting to do that for the first time, to experience that for the first time in this F122 game, and see if we can maybe use that to better our qualifying position and have maybe the first good race of the season. I should also mention right away that I was messing with my recording settings in OBS, and I wound up actually having too high of a setting for the beginning portion of this video. So the frames are going to be affected for this beginning portion, but I promise they will be fixed. I'm sorry I didn't notice until I had already had this recorded. So this beginning portion where I'm in the menus getting ready and prepared for the weekend in Imola is going to look a little bit choppy. It's going to be kind of laggy. I am sorry for that, but we are finally starting to get some improvements made to this car, and hopefully we'll start to see an increase in performance as well, and this car is going to hopefully get better as the season goes along, as well as our teammate at Piastri. We haven't seen quite the performance out of him this season. We've been in line to get some good finishes, and we just had things go wrong towards the end of races that have ruined our days through the first 3 races of the season. Piastri, on the other hand, he's kind of had bad races in all 3 races so far this season. But here we go for a checkpoint challenge in the McLaren in Imola, and this was much better than the last one that I chose at Australia. And this one you had to drive around the track and drive a certain amount of distance before the time ran out, and each time you went through one of these checkpoints, it gave you extra time. And I think that it was checking down by 1 second per gate that you went through. So I was down to 14 seconds right here, and I needed about 1,000 meters in order to be able to complete this one. And I thought going through this final corner, there's no way I'm going to complete this. And I was trying to put the power down as quick as possible. We get through this gate, we get a boost of 10 seconds. So we have 12 seconds to get another 500 meters, and we're down to 8 seconds now, just trying to fly down this front straightaway as fast as we can. We get to 10,000. We need 4 seconds to get there, and we actually do. We just barely get across. We actually make it up to 10,400 meters. So we actually get the first gold for one of these supercar mini games this season, and that gives us an extra 1,000 to claim and $100,000 as well, which will go a long way to helping boost this brand new team. But we get right into the weekend in Imola right away to the first practice of this weekend. So this weekend schedule is a bit different with the sprint race involved. It is the first practice, and then we go to qualifying for the sprint race, and then we have the second practice of the weekend. We only have 2 practices instead of 3, and then we have the sprint race, and then we have the regular race of the weekend. You see right there, as we get into the garage as well, we have another fault to start practice. So practice for us was delayed by about 2.5 minutes, I think it said, before we were able to get on track. And then we do eventually get out on track for our track acclimatization. And already I noticed this was kind of the best the car has felt this season so far. It's still a boat for sure, but it did not turn as bad as it did in, say, Jeddah or Australia last weekend, where it was raining pretty much the entire time. And right there, I actually just barely catch that gate. Didn't know it was going to be there in an angle like that, but we purple on our very first lap in the track acclimatization, and that's already practice over with as we get into qualifying, and it is pouring down rain. 2 weekends in a row where we cannot escape the rain, and here in qualifying, we definitely are not escaping it. I think we're going to be on the full wets for this qualifying session as we get the helmet on and we get prepared to go on a track for the very first time today in our qualifying session. And last time in Australia, the rain helped us make it to Q3 for the very first time in this team's young career. So hopefully the rain may help us do the same thing here in Imola as we look right away at the weather for the weekend. And it's definitely going to be wet in all of qualifying. And it also says the sprint race and the actual race are going to have rain as well. So the game, I felt, was trolling me a little bit, because the practice sessions, they were going to be dry. They were going to be clear. But every single session that counted for something, whether it be qualifying, the sprint race, or the actual race, was projected to have rain in it. And so far, I have despised the way this car drives in the rain. So in qualifying, we're just trying everything we can on this first lap to get the best performance out of the car. Right there on the final corner, I have a huge set of oversteer, and we need to catch the car, and that perhaps affected our lap a little bit. So I decided to go for a second one. We were in 11th. We're down to 17th as we end our second lap, and then as we cross the line this time, we get almost a second. We lose a bit of time out of the final corner again, but we do once again jump back up to 11th place, and then the track actually dries off a bit. And we're able to go back out on track on the intermediates for our second run of the day. And already through just sector 1, I'm already 6/10 up on my lap. So I'm hoping here that we're having the right performance out of the cars. But as I start to go through some of the corners, I realize that I'm just not getting as good of a time through these corners. Like specifically that one right there, I feel like I could have gained a bunch more time through that corner. I just didn't have the best run through it. The car still wouldn't want to cooperate with me as we cross the line this time. 4.5 seconds up on our fastest time of the session. And I thought that would be enough to get us through to Q2. But unfortunately, It was only 19th fastest. That was an extremely disappointing result in qualifying when I thought we had a chance to make it into Q2 again, but we don't make it into Q2, and that's 2 times this season we've made it to Q2. That is for 2 times we've been eliminated in the first round of qualifying, and both me and Piastri, both of us did not have good runs in qualifying, so obviously this car is not favorable for the wet weather, so hopefully the rest of the sessions this weekend, the predicted weather, it dries up a bit and we don't have to deal with as much rain as we are projected to deal with currently. And then to make matters worse, after qualifying, I noticed that the gearboxes weren't up to 61%. And I wasn't comfortable having a gearbox that was at 61% on the car, so we decided to take the penalty. And unfortunately, even with the sprint race, that means no matter how we do in the sprint race, we're going to start dead last for the main race on Sunday in Imola.
It's wet here today and we're expecting those downpours to continue. This will make for a difficult sprint for all the teams. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Sainz, Perez, George Russell, and Fernando Alonso. Magnussen, Ocon, Mick Schumacher, and Lando Norris. Bottas, Ricciardo, Pierre Gasly, and Tsunoda. Joe, Vettel, Lance Stroll, and Alex Albon. Cook, Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, and Nicholas Latifi. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint.
So we at least get to retain our 19th starting spot for this sprint race in Imola, the first one of the season, but unfortunately it is raining and we are on intermediate tires, which means that we're most likely not going to have the best race here in the sprint because we just know this car does not favor the wet conditions at all. But I decided to angle the car just a tiny bit, or at least try to at the very end. We get a purple starting spot once again. It's very easy, I've noticed, to get that purple starting position every single time, but it is time to start the sprint race in Imola. It's going to be 5 red lights and we are underway. Charles Leclerc gets away well. Max Verstappen does not, and that's going to allow Carlos Sainz to pull to his outside and fight him for that second place into turn number 1. Carlos Sainz has the preferred line as they head down into the first turn of this race, and Carlos Sainz is going to have a slight advantage as well, and Max Verstappen actually goes a little bit wide. He loses a couple of spots to his teammate, a Mercedes, and then has to fight against an Alpine as well, and then Joe goes off track right in front of us. That lets us get by Albon. I wanted to get by Joe, but I just did not have the run. I back out of it a little bit, which gives Albon the opportunity to fight back to our outside, but then I have the preferred line on the exit of the corner. I pull away there, and then we decide to dive bomb on Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion. I want to try and get all the positions that I can on this first lap, knowing that we are not going to have the speed in this car later in this race, so I want to try and get every spot that I can. And I dive bomb him one more time, but the straight line speed of that Mercedes is going to help him once again on the front straightaway here. I know that, but I decided to try and take it anyways. I just passed a 7-time world champion. I was very confident about that, but then he was also very confident with the speed in his Mercedes to challenge us right back, so I get off the ERS. I lay off knowing he's going to easily get past us, so I let Hamilton back in front of us, just trying to then defend from the drivers behind us. But then the Williams fighting each other, actually, and Albon has to go off track to try and keep from hitting his teammate, and then Hamilton right ahead of us makes an overtake on Joe. He's being super aggressive early in this race. He wants to make those positions up that he lost in qualifying as well. Maybe try and find himself inside the top 10 or around the top 10 for the start of the race tomorrow and Sunday, the main race in Imola that's going to pay the big bucks here. But we're just trying at this point to get our footing under control in the car, and that is allowing Latifi in a Williams to challenge us. We just do not have the control, but I decided to be aggressive, not let Tim have it. I push him out again, and then behind us, actually ahead of us, sorry, there's a caution. It's Yuki Tsunoda, who unfortunately is going to wind up being out in the sprint race. He has a mechanical failure and is out very early in the sprint race, so that is a terrible start to the weekend for Yuki Tsunoda. And then we run all over the curbs as well. The curbs here in Imola, just for me, they suck me in. I run them over all the time, and I immediately am checking the damage pretty much almost every single time I do so, because I know how finicky these F1 cars are, and I don't want to do any damage to the floor. But unfortunately, it seems like I've already done a little bit of damage to the floor just in the sprint race. Oh, and here's an AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly going for a slide. He saves it. What a huge save for the AlphaTauri driver of Gasly. Let's go on board to see what he just went through. He starts drifting in turn 2, and then he holds it all the way through, drifting in a Formula Formula One car is Pierre Gasly. That is a huge, mega save for the AlphaTauri driver. What a piece of driving there by Pierre Gasly, showing the car control has and showing maybe that he should be on Red Bull again. But here's Latifi in the Williams once again going on the attack. And this time I decided to try and let him through because I just realized we have nothing for him. And then he actually locks up into turn number 1 and allows us right back through. So I say thank you to Latifi for the gift. And we cruise on once again in 18th place in this race. But then once again, here comes our teammate Piastri now attacking us down this front straightaway. I don't want to let up a spot to our teammate here. So I fight him really hard, almost push him off track. And then I push him a little bit into turn 1 as well. I'm being perhaps a little bit too aggressive against our teammate, but I don't care. It's the sprint race. I want to hold the position here, and I'm being just as aggressive as I can be on Piastri, who actually was fighting us back once again. He's being pretty aggressive as well as much as I'm being aggressive. Piastri is showing it right back. So the first time this season we've really raced each other, it's come in a sprint race, and we're both going at it, and we're not really letting each other have any room. But I actually that time realized that he's going to just completely destroy us on this front straightaway, and he does indeed do that. And now I'm under attack from the Williams of Latifi again, and I'm still not willing to be passed by a Williams. So in turn number 1, I send it aggressive again up the inside. We make a little bit of contact with the Williams driver, and I force myself back into that place one more time. So we're at least still in 19th place as it's on the final lap of this race. Charles Leclerc is going to claim victory here in Imola in the sprint race. He starts on pole, and he leads every single lap to win this race by an easy margin over his teammate Carlos Sainz in second, and then George Russell in third. All three of those guys on the podium. And on this very final lap as well, we still are able to retain our position over Latifi that we've been scrapping with for several laps, and we come home to finish 19th in the sprint race in Imola. Perhaps a disappointing result. I was hoping to maybe go forward and show that we had some pace, but unfortunately we did the exact opposite of that, and we didn't have a good time at all in the sprint race. But there's Fernando Alonso as well. He finished 5th ahead of Max Verstappen. That Alpine has shown some real pace in the last 2 races, and he gets paid with 4 points out of that as well. But then we look a little bit further down the grid, and it's the 2 teammates of myself and Piastri finishing 18th and 19th. But unfortunately, it'll be a 22nd place starting position for us in Imola for the race on Sunday.
Welcome once again to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari. The clue's in the name. This is very much Ferrari home turf, and the locals will be out in force today to support their team in what we hope will be a magnificent spectacle of motorsport. On then to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. 3.1 miles of track at Imola featuring 19 turns, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. Remember that Imola differs from most other Formula One tracks as it's taken anti-clockwise. Let's hope nobody forgets that today. The exit from turn 18 will probably be the setup for many of today's overtakes, leading as it does into the longest straight on the circuit and its only DRS zone. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole. And a very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Perez, Fernando Alonso and Verstappen, Magnussen, Ocon, Bottas and Lando Norris, Vettel, Ricciardo, Pierre Gasly and Mick Schumacher. They've taken a grid penalty. Hamilton, Stroll, Guan Yu Zhou and Oscar Piastri. Latifi, Albon. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Cook and Yuki Tsunoda. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
So thank goodness, as you saw there, it is nice and sunny, it is warm, and it is dry here in Imola for at least the very start of this race, because you see at the end it's projected to be rain, unfortunately. But we at least get to have the majority of this race in the dry, and I'm thankful for that. We finally get to see what kind of pace we have here in Imola. I also decided to add a little bit of fuel to the car. Once again, I'm not necessarily trusting this car with underfueling it, so I overfuel it just to make sure that we can make it to the end of this race. We haven't had a safety car yet this season either, so we haven't had that opportunity to save fuel in the middle of a race, which tells me that I should add fuel to it, because in Imola, I don't expect us to have that crazy of a race. This track doesn't provide for a lot of overtaking, so I think we're going to have a pretty tame race once again, and we might have to wait till race 5 to get our first safety car. But we get purple into the gate that time, and I really put us at an angle to the right into the middle of the track to try and maybe attack right at the Williams right in front of us. But it is 5 red lights, and away we go. Charles Leclerc once again gets away well from pole, but actually this time it's Carlos Sainz who gets a better launch as well, and they're still side by side heading into turn number 1. The teammates in Ferrari are fighting each other on this first and opening lap, and Leclerc tries to force Sainz out, but then Sainz forces Leclerc out. They're still fighting each other side by side, and then eventually on the exit of turn 3, Leclerc says, "No sir, that's my spot," forces Sainz almost off the track. He has to back out and lets Leclerc through, and that is Charles Leclerc into the lead of this race once again on this first and opening lap. I'm also super aggressive, and we make really good contact that time with the Williams of Albon. It's been all us and Williams this weekend so far. We've had a big time rivalry with that team, and I once again shoved my way through against the Williams in a braking zone, and also I caused a little bit of wing damage to Albon, so perhaps that also allowed me to get through that time. But I'm just being super aggressive on this first lap with the braking zone, because I know that the AI have much better drive than I do off the corner, and they sail down the straightaways compared to me, so I want to try and get every position that I can and then try and play defense if at all possible. And then actually after this first lap, Carlos Sainz has to come to the pit lane because he had contact with his teammate Leclerc heading into turn number 1 on the very opening corner of this lap, and that caused some wing damage that he had to come into the pit lane and fix. So it is an awful start for Carlos Sainz, who had to go from second, potentially able to battle with his teammate of Leclerc, to then now last in this race. And then speaking of teammates, we also send it up the inside of our teammate of Piastri, make the move, but then he is able to defend around the outside, keep that position on us, so I decided to fall back in behind him once again. Don't want to cause any big issues for the team right away just on the second lap of this race very early in Imola in the 4th race of the season. We both need to have a good finish for the first time. But then throw all that away, because once again, into a braking zone, I try and full send on Piastri. He goes off track to the left side. It left me a little bit too much room there, actually, and we get through on our teammate of Piastri. I've noticed that the AI will actually, they'll kind of sacrifice themselves to give you a little bit too much room, and Piastri indeed was the case doing that again right there. But then on the front straightaway, just again, the AI had much better drive on the straightaways. He gets past me, but then into the corner, locks up the tires, and this time he's really behind me because he had to go off track and wait for everybody behind me to pass him. And then once again, it's Albon who blows right past us that time with the help of the DRS, not even making a challenge. He is easily clear into 18th place around us, and then Vettel and Norris are fighting each other for 9th place. They go at it pretty hard to make a little bit of contact here into turn number 2, and then Vettel squeezes his way back against Norris and then squeezes him out in turn 3. That's a move we've seen a couple times already in this race. He gets clear back and stays in 9th place once again. But then here's Yuki Tsunoda trying to rebound from his bad finish in the sprint race, trying to attempt to pass on us, but I squeeze him out, force him out once again, and I'm being super defensive still in this race. Don't want to let anybody get past me. But then on this very next lap, I have no choice. Tsunoda is way too close to us this time with the help of DRS as well. He blows right past us, much like the Williams did just a couple of laps ago, and we're down to 20th, just trying to hold on to a top 20 in this race. And at this point, I'm starting to realize as well that we just have no pace at all to defend against these AI. Piastri was a second behind us that lap. Now he's only a 10th behind us with the DRS as well. He's going to try and make a fight against us down this front straightaway. I don't even use the ERS, knowing he's going to have the big time advantage on us. And there's actually a yellow up ahead as we head into turn number 1. It's Sebastian Vettel off track, who we just saw battling with Lando Norris a couple laps ago. He is having to wait on us to pass by. He is unfortunately off the track. And then here's Carlos Sainz, who gets past us as well in the Ferrari, on the much faster Ferrari. So Carlos Sainz is starting to rebound in this race. As actually there's a caution right ahead of us, and it's Carlos Sainz. I was just saying that he was rebounding, but actually Sainz is going to be out of this race. His engine just let go, and on lap number 10, the same lap that Charles Leclerc DNF'd with an engine failure last week, now it's Sainz this week on lap 10 who is out of this race very early. And then on lap 12, we're trying to defend from Sebastian Vettel. I catch way too much curb, and we unfortunately go for a spin, and we have to let Sebastian Vettel through. We were just trying to be super aggressive right there, trying to keep Vettel behind us in a much faster car, and I knew I had to give all the power that I could, and unfortunately we just caught too much of it, and we lost the curbing, or we lost the car there, and we are now down to last in this race. So I decided to immediately say, you know what, we were going to pit next lap, but I decided to come in this time because I want to get these worn tires off the car as fast as I can, maybe try for an undercut here as well. Once again, with the purple turned into the pit lane, or into our box as well, and we have a 2.3 second pit stop that time. So it's been 2.4 all season. Now it's a 2.3 second stop. That is a blistering stop from our pit crew, and thankfully, that's the one part of this team that is going really well. But I just saw right there, our engineer says 10 minutes until the rain is projected. So at this point, I'm thinking to myself, oh dear Lord, that's terrible. But maybe at the same time, it could be a position for us to maybe try some strategy if we want in this race and either stay out on track or go in early, depending on what the AI do and depending on when it rains. Actually, wait a minute, it's Lance Stroll out of the race all of a sudden. The safety car is out, the first safety car of the season. Finally in Imola, and what did Lance Stroll hits Zhou Guanyu coming out of the pit lane. Now, what in the world was Lance Stroll doing there? You could see the car coming out of the pit lane, and he just stays in the same exact line, going much faster than Zhou, and hits him and completely destroys his own car and ends his race early on lap number 16 here in Imola, our first safety car of the season as well. Didn't think it would take us this long to get one, but we finally have a safety car. We decided to pit because I want to get into the pit lane, change some wing damage that we had, also put on the medium tires as well, and hope this takes us to the rain all the way to the end of this race, and we actually get a 7.6 second stop for a wing change. I feel like that's a pretty fast time. So this pit crew is certainly the shining point of this team so far because everything else has been going abysmally wrong to this point, but I'm having to absolutely fly to catch up to the safety car as well. I'm about a full track behind when the safety car came out, so I had to absolutely fly to catch up to the safety car queue as Charles Leclerc still leads the way, but we just get behind Sebastian Vettel in 19th place as the safety car is ending, so we don't even really get the time to collect ourselves here. I've already also used 6% of my tires, so we had to destroy our tires just a little bit to catch this field, but luckily we did indeed get caught up to them as it's now green flag once again, and it's Charles Leclerc getting away really nicely from George Russell behind him, and then to Sergio Perez as well in third place in this race right now. The podium is a Ferrari, a Mercedes, and a Red Bull currently, and then a Red Bull Max Verstappen right behind as well, and then both Alpines doing a fantastic job as well of leading the midfield at this point in the race, but on lap 20 of 32, at this point I'm just hoping that I can stay connected with the back of Vettel for when the DRS gets enabled, but you can see already I'm over a second behind, still losing time to him. I just have no drive at all compared to the Aston Martin driver, or really compared to any of the AI, and then as well, our engineer of Mark lets us know that rain is projected to hit in about 5 minutes time. So at this point, you can see the clouds are starting to really bulk up as well. Actually, as well, our teammate of Piastri and TSUNODA are right in front of us with a battle, and that lets us get back up to Sebastian Vettel. I think for a moment about attacking, but I decided to back out of it, and then Vettel wants to go around the outside of TSUNODA. They're still side by side into turn number 5. I get real close to the battle, have to back out of it to not go off track as well. And then these two still fighting side by side right in front of me. I'm just trying to find a moment to where I can attack as well, but then I use way too much curb, have to catch the car, check for the damage, and unfortunately, we're now disconnected from that battle. But here's another battle as well of the Williams behind us, and Albon has to go off track to avoid from going into the gravel, and lets his teammate Latifi through. So that's those two scrapping at each other once again, and Albon losing out one more time as well. And then the first drops, Mark says, very soon as well of rain. So at this point on lap 24 of 32, depending on when the rain starts, I don't know if we're going to be able to get to those wet tires. So I'm not too sure if there's going to be much strategy involved at the end of this race, as much as it will be survival if it indeed does start raining with just a couple laps to go. And actually, TSUNODA and our teammate of Piastri going at it once again, and I saw a bunch of damage. It's from TSUNODA, who has to back out of it, and unfortunately, he just lost a bunch of spots. So bad race gone worse for TSUNODA. You see Piastri lock up, and then TSUNODA hits him, and TSUNODA has had an abysmal time here in Imola. His race is pretty much going to be practically over from here as well. Now it is actually over. What in the world just happened to TSUNODA? We saw him driving away from the incident, and now he's suddenly out of the race, and there's a safety car for the second time today as he's driving away from the incident right there. He's just going along the straightaway, and maybe does he just pull over? Wait, that's not... Hold on a minute. Did a tire just fall off of that car? A tire did just fall off of that car. Hold on a minute. What just happened to Yuki Tsunoda? Why did it... He was just driving along, and the tire just fell off. That is one of the weirdest things I think I've ever seen in an F1 game. So a ghost, I guess, just completely attacked Tsunoda and said, "You're out of this race. You're done, sir." And that is an awful weekend for Yuki Tsunoda here in Imola. DNF in both the sprint race and the main race on Sunday as well. Yuki Tsunoda is going to be extremely disappointed with how his weekend just went here in Italy. But we decided to come to the pit lane, put on the soft tires, and hope that we don't have to go to the intermediates to end this race, as we're only going to have 5 laps remaining when we take the green flag once again, and the safety car is going in just as we catch the pack once again as well. well. Charles Leclerc gets away from George Russell once again, and now it's still Sergio Perez on that podium position as well. So we really haven't seen any position changing at all throughout this race so far, but immediately I get the jump on Sebastian Vettel. Actually, I get a really good launch off the final corner, but then once again down the straightaway, he just gets such better straight line speed than myself, and we just lose all that time that we had right there. We were almost passing Sebastian Vettel, and then into turn number 1 we were way behind him, but then I dive bomb him into turn number 6, once again being super aggressive on this initial restart. I know this is the best time to gain those positions back if I want to gain them, and then same thing on our teammate of Piastri, and actually this time we keep that drive to our advantage off the corner. We don't get blown away by Piastri, and we're up into 17th place. We make the pass on our teammate and use these soft tires to our advantage. There's a yellow flag once again. Now it's for Norris, who goes off track. He goes for a spin, actually, through the first couple of turns. He does a 360 just like last week in Australia, and that, unfortunately, is the second week in a row where a spin and keep going has cost Lando Norris a bunch of spots. Then we go around the outside. We're being super aggressive. We go around the outside of Albon, using these soft tires to our big-time advantage. I think they have more grip as well through these wet conditions. Latifi almost loses his car into that corner. We have to slam on the brakes, go to the inside, and we make a pass once again. Now we're up to 14th place all of a sudden. What was looking like maybe just barely a top 20 finish in this race is all of a sudden now a 14th place finish on lap 30 of 32, and now we have a chance to maybe go attack Guan Yu Zhou as well, and maybe even Pierre Gasly right in front of him. And here's the Red Bull teammates going at each other as well right now. Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen, they're fighting each other for that final podium position, being super aggressive against each other. And now it's Perez who actually wins that battle against his teammate of Verstappen. Verstappen now just needs to try and gather things back up and go on the attack once again as he exits this corner right here. And actually, he's going to catch too much curb. He's going to go for a spin as well and lose out to both Alpines and a Haas as well. So for Max Verstappen, battling too hard with his teammate, he just lost a bunch of spots. Now we have caught Zhou, though, and we're trying to make a move as we come to grab the white flag in this race. Tried to make a move on the Alfa Romeo driver in the Alfa Romeo's home race here in Italy. We're trying everything we can to see if we can pass Guan Yu Zhou on this final lap. We have a good run of ERS down this straightaway. We make a move, look to the outside, then look back to the inside, almost lose the car, have to catch it again, and we just can't get set up for a dive bomb into turn number 1. Guan Yu Zhou keeps that position on us. We stay in 14th place. He stays in 13th, and unfortunately, we can't make that pass done, and at this point, we just lost too much time. We couldn't make the move again. Charles Leclerc is going to take home and sweep the weekend, take home the victory here in Imola, sweep both the sprint race and the race on Sunday as well. George Russell on the podium, Sergio Perez also on the podium in 3rd place as well, and then we just want to survive now at this point. The grip has gone all away from these tires, and we come through to finish a masterful 14th place. I am very, very happy with that position, especially after it was looking like we were just barely going to get a top 20. So finally, we have a race that goes our way. We finished 14th, and now hold on a minute. What has happened here? There's a Red Bull stopped on the side of the track after the race. It's Sergio Perez. Another comical mistake from the AI. Perez destroys his car off Leclerc after the race.
It's a performance that our Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix winners can be justifiably proud of, and I'm sure there'll be celebrations tonight. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
I really feel the track layout combined with the track temperatures we saw today suited their car. These cars come alive when the tyres are just at the right temperature, and the driver did a great job managing that as well. They just look so comfortable out there. It's like anything, it always looks so easy when it all just clicks.
Here come our winners now, a thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again.
Well, that turned out to be a pretty good weekend for us. I did not expect the race to go the way that it just did right there. I thought coming into the recording that Imola was going to be just once again another boring race, but it actually turned out to be the most wild one we've had so far, and it gave us 2 safety cars as well with a couple of AI mistakes to boot and ghost destroying TSUNODA as well. But what it also did is it gave us our best finish of the season. It was helped by some strategy. It was helped by some wacky safety cars as well. But you know what? Who cares? We finished a season best 14th, and we finally, like I said, had a race go our way. We make 3 pit stops as well. All 3 pit stops fantastic. So the pit crew has been has been a wonderful surprise so far this season, and I think that all we can hope for in the future is to just keep building on that and hope that Piastri starts to show those performances as well. I think it's been an 18th, and like a 19th and a 17th or something like that for Piastri so far this season as well in our first rivalry, by the way, with Guan Yu Zhou. The first race did not go so well for us. We wound up only getting 3 points towards the 30 that we need. He got 7, so already a good jump for Guan Yu Zhou, and yeah, that's not looking so good for us in our first rivalry of the year. But after the session, we go look at our acclaim, and we actually leveled up enough to get our second sponsor on the car, earning a little bit more money per week and per race as well. And we wind up choosing a sponsor called Uterpe. I'm not too sure how to pronounce it. All I know is they give us the most money possible. We just have to out-qualify our rival in order to get that bonus goal, which is $93,000, but we get an extra $60K a week, and that is going to help a ton. Also as well, Charles Leclerc is closed that gap between him and Perez. It's only 2 points now, the points lead that Perez has over Leclerc after 4 races, so it's getting very, very close up top of the championship fight. But anyways, I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video and support the series so far. I appreciate all of you a ton who do decide to watch this. If you could hit that like button with your face hole, I would appreciate it a ton, and I will see you guys in episode 5 for the Miami Grand Prix, the first ever Miami Grand Prix. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.